Story 1. The Cabin in Bitterroot, Montana, 3 knocks at 3 a.m. My name is Ethan Brooks, and I never believed in skinwalkers, curses, or things that stalk the darkness. I'm an engineer, numbers, logic, and measurable facts. That's who I was, until the winter my family moved into my aunt's old cabin in the Bitterroot Mountains of Montana. The cabin was 150 years old, built long before state lines and county borders meant anything. It sat between towering pines, their branches heavy with snow. The land felt ancient, older than any map or deed could ever claim. My fiancée, Sarah, loved how peaceful it looked. My daughter, Lily, just liked the idea of snow angels. I should have listened to the silence instead. Silence has a way of warning you, if you know how to hear it. We moved in on a Friday. By the next sunrise, I knew something was wrong. The first night, 3 knocks. It happened at 3 a.m., almost to the second. 3 knocks. Slow. Deliberate. Like someone counting. Knock. 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 They echoed through the wood of the cabin like they came from inside the walls. Sarah shot upright in bed. I was half asleep and ready to dismiss it as a branch or the wind, but she pressed her hand against my chest. Ethan, someone's at the door. I grabbed my coat and followed her into the living room. She opened the door before I could stop her. The porch was empty. No wind. No sound. Just the cold. But the snow told another story. Right there on the steps were footprints, bare, human footprints. No shoes. No socks. Just naked feet sinking deep into the snow, as if the person weighed far more than they should. The prints led from the porch straight into the tree line, then vanished. As if the person stepped into the trees and dissolved. I told Sarah there had to be an explanation. She didn't argue, but she didn't believe me either. That was the first crack in my skepticism. Chapter 2, Robert's Warning. My uncle Robert arrived the next day with canned food and firewood. He was a truck driver, rough, loud, and the kind of man who called everything nonsense unless he saw it himself. But when he stepped out of his truck, he scanned the tree line like he expected something to be standing there. "You heard anything strange yet?" he asked. I raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" He scratched his beard. "Like a bear." That didn't seem odd, until he added softly, "A bear that walks on 2 legs." Sarah stopped unpacking. "You mean, like a person?" Robert shook his head. "No. Bigger. Taller. With eyes red as brake lights." He said he'd seen it the night before, close enough to the fence that the boards shook under its weight. He tried to scare it off, but it just stared back at him, like it was curious. I laughed. Couldn't help it. It was probably just the light catching a normal bear's eyes. But Robert didn't laugh. I've driven highways from Wyoming to Oregon. I've seen animals hit by cars, coyotes tearing deer apart, elk breaking fences, but I've never seen that. He tapped one of the footprints still visible in the snow. "And whatever was here last night? That wasn't an animal." Chapter 3, The Howl. 2 nights later, a dog, Duke, a massive German shepherd with no fear of anything, pressed himself into the corner behind the fireplace. I'd had that dog for 6 years and never once saw him act afraid. He shook so badly his collar jingled. Then we heard it. A howl. Long. Low. Like a wolf, but wrong. Too deep, too human, and too close to the cabin. It stretched through the trees like the sound was alive, searching for somewhere to settle. When the last note faded, Duke whimpered and covered his head with his paws. That should have been the moment I packed the truck and left. But fear does something strange. It convinces you that just one more night won't hurt. Chapter 4, Lily's Drawing. The morning after, I found my daughter, Lily, 4 years old, sitting at the table with crayons scattered everywhere. She was drawing something tall, thin, with long arms that dragged near the ground. It wore what looked like an animal skull as a mask. "Who's that?" I asked. She pointed at the window. "He was watching me last night." My blood went cold. Sarah grabbed the paper. "Sweetie, did you have a bad dream?" Lily shook her head. "No. He talked to me. But he wasn't using his mouth." I didn't know what that meant. I didn't want to know. But the fear in her voice was real. And fear that real doesn't come from imagination. Chapter 5, The Song in the Night. The next incident happened so quietly that it almost felt like a dream. Around 2:45 a.m., I woke up to what sounded like singing. Not music, more like the wind blowing through something hollow. It was soft at first, drifting through the walls of the cabin. Then it grew louder, circling the house. It wasn't English. It wasn't Cherokee. It wasn't anything. I stepped onto the porch with my hunting rifle. Frost bit my skin, but I barely felt it. Under the moonlight, between two pines, stood a figure. Tall, easily over 7 feet. So thin I could see its ribs through its skin. Arms too long, legs bent wrong, like an animal trying to stand like a man. It turned its head toward me. And then it smiled. A twisted, unnatural smile that stretched far past what a human mouth should do. Its teeth gleamed, in needle sharp, too many of them. Then it stepped backward into the shadows. 1 step. 2. Gone. The singing stopped instantly. Chapter 6, The Window. The night everything collapsed began with a scream. Lily's scream. Sarah sprinted down the hallway into her room, and I was right behind her. The window was shattered, glass all over the floor. The wooden frame had deep claw marks, gouged into the grain. Lily huddled in the corner, shaking. "He said I have to go with him," she whispered. That was it. I didn't care about logistics or safety or the storm. We were leaving. I grabbed our bags. Sarah carried Lily. Robert ran to the truck to warm the engine. But the truck wouldn't start. The forest around us went silent. And then? Knock, knock, knock. Not slow this time. Not patient. Fast. Aggressive. Desperate. Then came the laughter. A rasping, guttural sound like a crow choking on smoke. It came from everywhere, from the trees, from the roof, from the broken window. That laughter is something I still hear when I try to sleep. Chapter 7, The Shaman. In the chaos, Robert called a friend, an old Navajo man who'd spent his life studying the old rites. I don't know how he arrived so fast, maybe he was already close. Maybe he knew. He lit a fire near the tree line and told us to stay behind him. He chanted words I didn't understand, words that vibrated the air, words that felt heavy. The forest exploded with sound. A roar, deep, monstrous, shaking snow from the branches overhead. At the edge of the firelight, I saw it again. The Skinwalker. Its eyes burned red against the darkness, unblinking, furious. Every time the chant grew louder, it stepped back. Every time the fire flickered low, it stepped forward. Finally, with one last shout from the shaman, the fire surged upward. And the creature vanished into the darkness, like smoke being pulled into the night. The shaman lowered his hands. "It's gone," he said. "For now." But when I looked into the forest, I could feel it. Watching. Waiting. Hungry. We left Montana the next morning. And I swear, every time I see a stretch of dark trees on the side of the road, I feel 2 red eyes staring back at me. Story 2, Shadows over Nevada, the desert that watches back. My name is Lucas Thompson, and the year was 1995, one of the hottest summers Nevada had seen in decades. I grew up near a stretch of desert not far from Area 51, The kind of place where the silence sinks into your bones and the heat never truly cools down. The land there has memories. Some good. Most, not. At the center of everything stood the old Thompson Ranch, once owned by my distant uncle, William, though everyone just called him Will. And before I tell you what happened to me, you need to understand what happened to him. Chapter 1, The Cursed Discovery. Will was greedy. Not evil. Just the type of man who'd sell anything if it meant profit. 2 years earlier, he discovered an Anasazi burial cave while rounding up cattle. Instead of reporting it, he hauled out every pot, carving, and bone fragment he could find. To him, it wasn't sacred, just desert junk. That was the beginning of his downfall. Within months, his cattle started dying of a strange wasting illness. His wife collapsed and never recovered. Then Will himself shattered his spine when his horse panicked for no reason. By the time I met him, he was a broken man, convinced the desert was punishing him. One night, he whispered to me, "It stands at my window, boy, a tall shadow with a coyote's face and burning eyes. It knocks 3 times and laughs." I gave it back the bones, but that only made it angrier. Will abandoned the ranch soon after. No one else wanted it. So when my Aunt Emily needed a place to stay, cheap, she and my grandmother, Margaret, moved right in. I wish we'd all known what waited for us there. Chapter 2, The Drums in the Dark. I visited the ranch every weekend. The place felt wrong the moment I arrived, like the air itself was watching me. The first night, while unpacking my things, I heard something in the distance. A rhythmic drumming, low and steady. Ba-dum. 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 Like a heartbeat echoing through the sand. Emily froze when she heard it. "That's Navajo chanting," she whispered. "No one around here practices that anymore." But it wasn't just chanting. Because right after the drums came the howl. It wasn't the howl of a coyote. It was deeper, almost human, but broken, like a throat no longer meant for speech. Even my grandmother, devout, fearless Margaret, clutched her cross and muttered prayers under her breath. Chapter 3, Something passes in front of the car. On the second night, Emily's old Chevy broke down. I offered to help, but she insisted on driving alone to town. She wanted us safe inside. I waited on the porch, staring at the dirt road that shimmered in the moonlight. Then it happened. Something massive ran through the beam of Emily's headlights. Not walked. Not wandered. Ran. It was fast, too fast for any animal in Nevada. All I saw was the outline of long limbs, a hunched back, and eyes reflecting red off the glass. The truck slammed to a stop. The engine sputtered. Then died. I sprinted toward her, but before I got close, she screamed, "Lucas, don't come closer, look at the ground." I froze. All around the truck were footprints. Huge ones. Shaped like an animal, but twisted, elongated. Some prints had claws. Others looked disturbingly human. But what terrified me most was the smell. Rotting meat. Hot iron. Burning hair. The scent of something dead pretending to be alive. We got the truck running after a few minutes, but the prints remained, circling the house like a warning. Chapter 4, The Mineshaft. Back then, I worked for a guy named David, a desert hippie who believed he was destined to open a spiritual museum for tourists. He wanted me to help him excavate the old Anasazi site, the same one Will had plundered. When we reached the entrance, the air felt cold despite the sun. Something was wrong with the shadows. They didn't fall where they should have. Inside the cave, I found a large stone wall carved with ancient symbols. In the center was a grotesque figure, half human, half beast, with hollow eyes and claws crossed over its chest. "A Skinwalker," David whispered. "The guardian of the dead." I lifted my camera and snapped a picture. The flash flickered against the stone. And for a split second, I saw something behind me. A second shadow. Tall. Looming. Not shaped like mine. I spun around. Nothing. But the photograph, that was worse. When it developed, there were faces in the background. Twisted, pale, screaming faces. Faces where there had been only darkness. I dropped the camera. David snatched the film and shoved it into his bag. "We are leaving," he said. And for the first time since I'd known him, he wasn't smiling. Chapter 5, The Night It Came for Me. That night, the Skinwalker came to the ranch. Not to scare us. Not to warn us. But to hunt. I was alone in the house. Michael, my brother, was out with friends. Emily and Margaret were already sleeping. I heard scratching on the glass. Slow, deliberate. I turned toward the window and saw two red eyes, inches from my face. Then a voice, my mother's voice, softly said, "Lucas, honey, open the door." My mother lived in Utah. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. The door handle rattled. Then something began dragging its claws across the outside wall. Scrch. 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 It circled the house, scratching and whispering. Eventually, the footsteps stopped. But the roof creaked above me. Heavy steps. Something crawling. Then, thud. Something jumped down in front of the door. The knob twisted. Hard. I raised the hunting rifle and aimed. The whispering stopped. Then a voice, my own voice, said from the other side, "Let me in." I almost pulled the trigger. But before I could, I heard tires on gravel, Michael's truck. Headlights swept across the door, and whatever was outside darted away with inhuman speed. When Michael walked in, he stared at the floor. "Why is there blood everywhere?" Red footprints, large, distorted, wrong, led from the door into the darkness. None of us slept that night. Chapter 6, David returns. David disappeared for 2 days after the cave incident. We thought he skipped town. Then one morning, he staggered onto the ranch porch, looking 30 years older. His hair had gone gray. His skin sagged. His eyes looked hollow. "It followed me," he rasped. I drove to California. I drove to Texas. I drove until the gas ran out. But every time I stopped, it was there. What did it want? I whispered. He shuddered. It wants what was disturbed. And anyone who saw the grave, anyone who touched the artifacts, is marked. Before we could ask more, he collapsed into a shaking heap. By the next sunrise, he was gone again. We never found out where he went. Chapter 7, The Last Picture. I burned the photographs the next day, every one of them. But even now, when I drive through the Nevada desert, I sometimes catch a glimpse of something standing by the side of the highway. Tall. Hunched. Eyes glowing like coals. And when the wind hits the right way, I swear it calls my name. Story 3, Voices in the Minnesota Pines, Don't Look Back. This next tale comes from the frigid north of Minnesota, where the woods swallow sound and time alike. My name is Nathan Reed, and I'm a freelance photographer. I used to hike the Superior National Forest alone at night to capture long-exposure shots of lakes, stars, and reflections. I don't do that anymore. Chapter 1, The Whisper. One October night, I hiked toward a remote lake. The moon was low, clouds drifting like torn cloth overhead. As I descended a slope of wet leaves and old roots, I heard a soft whisper. "Nathan, turn back." It was my mother's voice. She lived 500 miles away. I shook it off as exhaustion or imagination. But something in me tightened, like instinct pulling on a leash. The whisper came again. Stronger. Sharper. Wrong. "Nathan, come here." That was enough to make me stop. The woods around me had gone silent. No wind. No insects. No rustling. Just cold breath against my ear. Chapter 2, The Stench. The smell hit next. Rotting meat. Stale blood. Bones left to decay. I gagged, covering my mouth. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Heavy. Deliberate. Crunch. 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 I didn't dare turn around. Every story my Ojibwe grandmother had told me screamed one warning. If the forest calls your name, do not answer. If something stands behind you, do not turn. I quickened my pace. The footsteps quickened too. Chapter 3, The Laughter. I broke into a jog as branches snapped behind me. Then came the worst sound I've ever heard. My own laughter. High, mocking, echoing through the trees. Something was copying me. I reached the lakeside clearing, trembling, and raised my flashlight. That's when I saw it. Chapter 4, The Creature. It stood at the edge of the brush, half hidden. A human-shaped figure, tall, gaunt, legs bent like a deer's hind legs. Its face was wrong. Like clay mold by someone who had only seen humans from a distance. And its eyes. Bright, burning red. It took one step toward me. Then another. Every instinct screamed at me to run. I lifted my camera, hands shaking, and snapped a photo without thinking. The flash burst. And the creature flinched, just barely. I seized the moment and sprinted.